My name is Megan, and on the surface, that day was supposed to be perfect. The sun was shining, the yard was filled with pink balloons, and children's laughter floated in the air like music. I had planned Emily's 7th birthday for weeks, down to the last detail: her favorite castle-shaped cake, the glittering paper crowns, the fairy lights strung across the fence. For a moment, watching her tiny hands clap as everyone sang, I believed I had given her the kind of childhood memory she would treasure forever. But what I didn't know then was that a single whispered sentence would unravel everything I thought I knew about my life. It happened in the middle of the party, when the chaos was at its loudest, kids screaming with joy, parents chatting with easy smiles. I was at the drinks table, refilling the punch bowl, when I caught sight of her. Lucy. My sister. I hadn't invited her. In fact, I hadn't wanted her anywhere near me. Our relationship had always been complicated, competitive, tense, full of old grudges neither of us spoke aloud. But there she was, moving through the crowd like she belonged, her dark hair pulled back tight, her eyes sharp as ever. She didn't greet Emily. She didn't even acknowledge me right away. She just stood nearby, waiting, watching. I remember the exact moment she approached, the lilac perfume she always wore hitting me before her voice did. She leaned close, her lips brushing my ear as though sharing some harmless secret. "She's not your child." 4 words. That was all it took. For a heartbeat, I froze. My hands went slack, the ladle slipping back into the bowl with a splash. I turned to her, half expecting to see a smirk, some cruel joke. But Luce's expression was deadly serious. Her eyes locked on mine, steady and unblinking, as if daring me to challenge her. "Excuse me." My voice cracked, barely audible over the noise of the party. "You heard me," she whispered, her tone low but precise. "Emily, she's not yours." I felt my chest tighten. Heat rushed to my face, but at the same time, a coldness seeped into my veins. I forced a laugh, tried to dismiss it. "You're insane," I muttered, glancing around to make sure no one heard. Parents were watching their kids smash a pinata, blissfully unaware that my world was being cracked in half. Luce's smile was thin, almost pitying. "Ask Daniel," she said. Then she leaned back, her eyes drifting toward my husband, who was across the yard handing out slices of cake. He looked normal, casual, even cheerful. But suddenly, I noticed how he didn't quite meet my gaze when our eyes brushed. "Why would you say that?" I demanded, gripping Luce's wrist, but she pulled free with practiced ease. "I just thought you deserved the truth." And then, like smoke, she slipped back into the crowd, leaving me with those words echoing in my head. The rest of the afternoon was a blur. I smiled for the camera, lit the candles, clapped as Emily opened her presents. But inside, something rotten had taken root. Doubt. Suspicion. Fear. That night, long after Emily was asleep, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the half-eaten cake. Luce's whisper wouldn't leave me. I kept hearing it over and over, until it no longer felt like a cruel trick. It felt like a key, one that could open a door I had spent years pretending didn't exist. "She's not your child." And deep down, I was terrified that she might be right. That night, sleep didn't come. I lay in bed listening to the steady rhythm of Daniel's breathing beside me, my mind replaying Luce's words on an endless loop. "She's not your child." The more I tried to dismiss it, the more my body betrayed me, my hands trembling, my chest tight, my thoughts twisting back to moments I had ignored. Daniel working late. His sudden silences when I asked about his phone. The way Luce's eyes had darted to him before she slipped away. By morning, I had convinced myself I needed proof, not because I believed her, but because I needed to silence her voice in my head. At breakfast, Daniel was unusually cheerful, whistling as he buttered toast for Emily. She giggled at his little jokes, her hair messy, her cheeks still pink from the sugar rush of yesterday's cake. For a moment, it looked like the picture of a perfect family. But all I could see was the shadow Lucy had cast. "Daniel," I said carefully, "do you remember when Emily was born? How strange some of those first days were." He stiffened almost imperceptibly, then forced a laugh. "Strange?" Honey, you were exhausted. That's all. He leaned over to kiss my cheek, but I felt it, the way he wanted to shut down the conversation before it even began. Emily ran off to grab her backpack, leaving us alone for a moment. I lowered my voice. Lucy said something yesterday. Something insane. She told me Emily wasn't mine. His face drained of color so fast it scared me. For a long moment, he didn't move. His hand froze midair, toast halfway to his mouth. Then he shook his head and barked a laugh that didn't reach his eyes. Megan, she's trying to mess with you. You know how she is. Always jealous. Always stirring up drama. Maybe he was right. Maybe it was nothing more than Luce's bitterness. But something about the way his voice cracked on the word jealous made my stomach twist. I wanted to push harder, to demand answers, but Emily reappeared, swinging her backpack straps. Daniel kissed her forehead and ushered her toward the door, his voice suddenly light and playful again. Come on, kiddo, we'll be late. When the door shut behind them, silence filled the kitchen. I sat there staring at the untouched toast on my plate, my heart pounding. I didn't believe Lucy. I didn't. But Daniel's reaction told me there was more, something hidden, something he didn't want me to know. And I realized with a chill that if I wanted the truth, I couldn't ask him directly. I would have to find it myself. That was the morning I decided to start digging into the life I thought I already knew. I started small, because I didn't want Daniel to suspect. While he was at work and Emily was at school, I pulled out the old photo albums. Every picture of her as a baby should have comforted me, but instead it left me unsettled. Her hair had always been lighter than mine, almost honey-colored in the first years, and her eyes, hazel, not the deep brown that runs through my family. It wasn't proof, but it was enough to scratch at the edges of my certainty. Then I remembered something I had pushed away years ago. In the hospital, after Emily was born, I had been so exhausted that the first few hours felt like fragments of a dream. There were moments I couldn't clearly recall, Daniel holding her before me, the nurse who kept whispering something to another doctor, the brief panic when they took her out of the room for tests. At the time, I trusted them. Now those blurred memories haunted me. I searched through Daniel's desk drawers next. He never liked me touching his things, but desperation silenced my guilt. Bills, receipts, old letters, nothing out of the ordinary. Until I found an envelope tucked beneath a stack of manuals. Inside was a folded document, yellowed slightly with age. At first glance it looked medical, a hospital form. My heart pounded as I scanned the words. It was a record from the day Emily was born, but the signature at the bottom wasn't mine. It was Luce's. The room spun. I sank into the chair, the paper trembling in my hands. Why would my sister's name be on Emily's birth paperwork? Why would she even be present in that way? 1,000 possibilities swarmed my mind, each darker than the last. When Daniel came home that evening, I couldn't look at him without imagining the answers he might be hiding. He kissed Emily goodnight, then joined me in the living room. I clutched the document in my pocket, too afraid to confront him outright. He must have noticed my distant eyes, because he reached for my hand. Megan, you've been acting strange. Is this about Lucy? His voice was smooth, practiced, almost too calm. Yes, I said, forcing my voice steady. She told me something. Something I can't get out of my head. He stiffened, but before I could say more, my phone buzzed on the coffee table. A text message, unknown number. If you want the truth about Emily, meet me tomorrow. Come alone. My blood ran cold. It wasn't signed. But somehow, I already knew who it was. The message burned in my mind all night. Come alone. I didn't tell Daniel. I couldn't. His reaction to Luce's name was already enough to convince me that he was part of whatever this was. By morning, my decision was set. I dropped Emily off at school, my smile tight, my stomach in knots, then drove to the address pinned in the follow-up text. It was a quiet cafe on the edge of town, nearly empty at that hour. My hands shook as I pushed open the door, scanning the room. And there she was, Lucy. Sitting in the corner booth, her fingers wrapped around a coffee cup she hadn't touched. "You came," she said flatly, her eyes meeting mine. "Why?" I demanded, sliding into the seat across from her. "Why would you say something like that about Emily? Why would your name be on her birth papers?" Lucy didn't flinch. She reached into her bag and pulled out a thin folder. "Because it's true, Megan. The day Emily was born, there were complications. You were unconscious. The doctors made a mistake, swapped babies between rooms. Daniel found out before you woke up. He begged me to keep it quiet." I felt the air leave my lungs. "You're lying." Her gaze didn't waver. She slid the folder toward me. Inside were hospital reports, forms with signatures I didn't recognize, notes written in rushed handwriting. My fingers grazed the pages, my chest tightening as the truth unfolded. "Emily isn't biologically yours," Lucy said softly. "But you've raised her, Megan. You're the only mother she knows." Tears blurred my vision. Images of Emily flooded my mind. Her first steps, her first word, the way she still crawled into my lap when she had nightmares. None of that could be erased by a bloodline. But still, my world tilted. "And Daniel?" I asked, my voice breaking. Luce's lips pressed together. "He thought he was protecting you. He thought you'd never accept it." I sat back, the weight of it crushing me, then suddenly lifting. Emily was mine, not because of DNA, but because every heartbeat of her life had been tied to mine. When I finally looked up, my sister's expression had softened. For the first time in years, there was no rivalry in her eyes, only regret. I stood, the folder clutched to my chest. "Emily is my child. And no one, not even you, will ever take her from me." As I walked out of the cafe, the morning sun struck my face. For the first time since that birthday party, I felt steady. Broken, yes. Changed forever, yes. But steady. Because betrayal may have brought me here. But love was what would carry me forward.